Morning, everybody. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. At the outset, let me express my sincere appreciation for the administration of UNIDROIT, not only for inviting me to address you today, but also for organizing this summer school at a time when we all need to gain knowledge in relation to our contributions to our world and development. As we are maybe stepping out of the COVID-19 pandemic, the world of private international law is still exploring means to remedy the aftermath it caused on contracts and legal obligations between traders, investors, and states. The pandemic left us with fragile economies and austerity measures across the globe. So imagine small economies that are also starting to suffer from internal turmoils and conflicts and might be overburdened by paying hefty compensation due to losses caused by the lockdowns. So, what will be left in the budgets of small, medium-sized economies to fund their development? Adding salt to the wound, the Russia-Ukraine crisis compelled everyone to think of basic commodities, and governments had to divert their financial resources that were supposed to be directed to the research and development or development of industry to pay for food and agriculture supplies. Having said that, we can confirm that extraordinary situations require extraordinary solutions. So in our world today, what solutions can we bring in the field of private international law to address such extraordinary situations? And how can the unification of private international law rules contribute to finding such solutions? In my humble opinion, UNIDROIT, UNCITRAL, and the Hague Conference on Private International Law, the AU regional agreements like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, and EU regional mechanisms can definitely play a major role in our lives today more than ever. Let me shed some light on the how. It can be said that transnational contracts relating to commerce and investments suffered a great deal due to the unforeseen global calamity of the pandemic. Intense disruptions in relation to delivery of goods, supplies, and services occurred. So who is responsible for the damages? To balance the principle of pacta sunt servanda, can any party invoke the execution of non-performance, force majeure, or hardship concepts? These questions test our abilities to find the right answers with the participation of academics and practitioners in the field of private international law. And here, the problem that they will face is how to harmonize and accept which situations merit invoking which principles. I don't think there is one size fits all solution, but the harmonization of conditions that will lead to one classification will definitely assist states and private players in containing the damages incurred by the lack of performance in contracts. One example jumps to mind. In many of our countries, certain hotels were chosen by governments to be venues for quarantine under the pandemic. If these hotels are owned by private foreign investors, which is mostly the case, especially in developing countries, who will pay the bills? And who will incur the cost of rehabilitating the facility to return it to its functional conditions as a regular hotel? The same goes to the failure of deliveries of raw materials due to the mining delays, which caused massive problem in high-tech industries. The entire chain is delayed. Hence, the delivery of the final products have been either canceled or delayed to the final recipients. This is clear in the production of cars, electric panels, chips that are used in the production of hundreds of products. All these need to be analyzed by practitioners, academics, and judges who are and will be faced with numerous claims for damages. I just can't imagine the losses for small countries that will need to hire expensive law firms to probably end up losing cases and paying for damages. Hence, the role of harmonization of the rules in such circumstances is needed. Now more than ever, to ensure that the resources of smaller countries and economies will not be depleted in paying for damages and leaving no space for them to develop. In this regard, I want to mention a successful example, which was just mentioned by the Secretary General, of the Convention on International Interests in Mobile Equipment, commonly referred to as the Cape Town Convention. This convention has been ratified by 81 states and has 4 protocols, namely the 2001 Aircraft Protocol, the 2007 Luxembourg Rail Protocol, the 2012 Space Protocol, and the 2019 Mining, Agriculture, and Construction Protocol, called MAC. The convention is used to facilitate the efficient financing and leasing of mobile equipment by reducing risk for financiers and reducing the cost of credit in its state parties. This is well and good, but how does this convention contribute to the development of economies? If we look into the numbers disclosed by the International Registry to the Aircraft Protocol, we can discover that it has been used by financiers over 1 million leases. Studies have shown that the adoption of the Aircraft Protocol by an average country could save it between 7.6 billion and 11.1 billion US dollars over a period of 20 years. Furthermore, an economic assessment of the MAC protocol estimates that over a 10-year period, the protocol may increase the stock of MAC equipment in developing countries by $90 billion. It is predicted to have a positive impact of 23 billion US dollars on GDP in developing countries and of 7 billion US dollars in developed countries, for a total impact on GDP equivalent to 30 billion US dollars. Here, let me touch upon a regional perspective. As it was mentioned, I was the Legal Counsel of the African Union until a few months ago, and I played a major role in the adoption of the AFCFTA and its protocols. I can assure you that the harmonization of the rules to be used by traders, investors, or states is regarded as an asset to development. There will be ease of reference to rules, ease in increasing the intra-Africa trade, and ease when it comes to knowledge of rules for the settlement of disputes. This agreement, based on a study published by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNICA, entitled Revisiting the Case for CFTA, is expected to lead to the growth in the intra-Africa trade. I'm speaking about the agreement itself, is expected to lead the growth in the intra-Africa trade by 52.3%. This developmental perspective was confirmed by the World Bank in a report on the AFCFTA published in July 2020, when it stated that implementing the AFCFTA is estimated to contribute to the lifting of an additional 30 million people from extreme poverty and 68 million people from moderate poverty. It added that as African economies struggle to manage the consequences of COVID-19, AFCFTA can provide an anchor for long-term reform and integration. And of course, if I connect this to my current mandate, such development will lead to less illegal migration, labor migration, and brain drainage in the continent, which are all assets to sustainable development, peace, and security. I don't want to dwell much on the regional context, but it is an example to guide us, exactly like the Cape Town Convention, on what the harmonization of private international law rules can assist in development and sorting some major problems facing us all, especially developing countries post-COVID-19 pandemic. Before I conclude, I wouldn't miss to mention the importance of guides and model laws in the harmonization of rules of private international law. The fast technological developments are accompanied with vast legal complications. It creates difficulties to the national legal systems that may not be in place to adopt legislations and rules at the same pace to address the different lacunae generated by these developments. Moreover, these factors, combined with the relative lack of speed in intergovernmental processes to adopt hard laws in the form of conventions and treaties, leave an evident space for legal guides and model laws to assist and provide guidance to states and practitioners alike. It is worth noting that guides serve as a reference to public officials and policymakers, as well as legal professionals, to assist them in negotiations and implementation of contracts that involve new fields that are yet to gain recognition nationally. The same goes to model laws, which are of great assistance to countries that may lack national capacities to prepare legislations in such advanced fields. Here I won't fail to mention the cryptocurrency that is fast developing via online systems and where many countries around the globe are yet to adopt rules to regulate the financial transactions via this mode. Hence, a guide or a model law in this domain will be of great assistance to many. It saves money and effort by each individual state to study the pros and cons of the usage of this method. Let's leave the adoption of laws to regulate it. To conclude, under austerity measures adopted by governments across the globe, due to the negative consequences of that COVID-19 left us with, the role of the organizations that work for the development and harmonization of private international law is becoming central to contain the damages resulted from the pandemic. Furthermore, it presents an opportunity for them to grab and demonstrate through their projects their importance to development, not only in developing rules, but also in economic developments that can be felt by all. Harmonization of private international legal rules are vital to lead our path towards sustainable development. Peoples are looking up to white collars to come up with rules to save humanity, and we should live up to their expectations. And I thank you.